As advertised, today is the 6th session of our meritorious reading of the Lotus Sutra. So without further ado, we will begin. At the end of 1 hour, we will have an open discussion. So we're beginning today with chapter 12, entitled Devadatta, which is page 207 of the Threefold Lotus Sutra, in the edition translated by Buno Kato, published by New York, Weatherhill Kosai. If you have that edition, you can follow along. Chapter 12, Devadatta. At that time, the Buddha addressed the bodhisattvas, the celestial beings, in the four groups, saying, "Through innumerable kalpas of the past, I have tirelessly sought the Law Flower Sutra. During many kalpas, I was long a king and vowed to seek the supreme Bodhi, my mind never faltering. Desiring to fulfill the 6 paramitas, I earnestly bestowed alms with an unsparing mind. Elephants, horses, the rare 7, countries, cities, wives, children, male and female slaves, servants and followers, head, eyes, marrow, brain, the flesh of my body, hands and feet, unsparing of body and life. At that time, people's lifetime was beyond measure. For the sake of the law, I gave up the throne of my domain and deputed my government to the crown prince, and with beating drum and open proclamation sought everywhere for the truth, promising, whoever is able to tell me of a great vehicle, I will all my life provide for him and be his footman. At that time, a certain hermit came to me, the king, and said, I have a great vehicle named Wonderful Law Flower Sutra. If you will not disobey me, I will explain it to you. I, the king, hearing what the hermit said, became ecstatic with joy and instantly followed him, providing for his needs, gathering fruit, drawing water, collecting fuel, laying his food, even turning my body into his seat and bed, yet never feeling fatigue of body or mind. While I thus served, a millennium passed, and for the sake of the law, I zealously waited on him that he should lack nothing. Just give me 1 sec. There we go. Then the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim this meaning over again, spoke thus in verse. I remember in past kalpas, when, to seek the great law, though I was king in the world, yet coveted not earthly pleasures, with toll of bell I proclaimed to the 4 quarters, whoever possesses the great law, if he will expound it to me, to him I will become a servant. Then there was the sage Asita, who came and said to the great king, I possess the wonderful law, rarely heard in the world. If you are able to practice it, I will preach it to you. Then the king, hearing the sage's word, conceived great joy in his heart, and thereupon followed him, providing for his needs, gathering fuel, fruit, and gourds, and in season reverently offering them. Keeping the wonderful law in my heart, body, and mind were unwearied. Universally for all living beings I diligently sought the great law, not indeed for my own sake, not for the delight of the 5 desires. So I, king of a great domain, by zealous seeking obtained this law, and at last became a Buddha. Now therefore I preach it to you. The Buddha said to all the bhikshus, the former king was myself, and the sage at that juncture was the present Devadatta himself. Through the good friendship of Devadatta, I was enabled to become perfect in the 6 paramitas, in kindness, compassion, joy, and indifference, in the 32 signs, the 80 kinds of excellence, the deep golden-hued skin, the 10 powers, the 4 kinds of fearlessness, the 4 social laws, the 18 special unique characteristics, the transcendent powers of the way, the attainment of perfect enlightenment, and the widespread saving of the living. All this is due to the good friendship of Devadatta. I declare to all you 4 groups. Devadatta, after his departure and innumerable kalpas have passed, will become a Buddha, whose title will be King of the Gods Tathagata, worshipful, all-wise, perfectly enlightened in conduct, well departed, understander of the world, peerless leader, controller, teacher of gods and men, Buddha, world-honored one, and whose world will be named Divine Way. At that time the Buddha King of gods shall dwell in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas. He shall widely preach the wonderful law for all the living, and living beings numerous as the sands of the Ganges will attain arhatship. Innumerable beings will devote themselves to pratyeka Buddhahood, and living beings numerous as the sands of the Ganges, devoting themselves to the Supreme Way, will attain to the assurance of no rebirth, and reach the stage of never falling back into mortal life. Then, after the parinirvana of the Buddha King of gods, the righteous law will dwell in this world during 20 intermediate kalpas. For his complete body relic, a stupa of the precious 7 shall be erected, 60 yojanas in height and 40 yojanas in length and width. All the gods and people, with various flowers, sandal powder, incense for burning, perfumed unguents, garments, garlands, banners, flags, jeweled canopies, music, and song, shall respectfully salute and pay homage to the wonderful stupa of the precious 7. Innumerable living beings will attain arhatship. Incalculable living creatures will awaken to pratyeka Buddhahood, and inconceivable numbers of the living will be aroused to bodhi and reach the stage of never falling back into mortality. The Buddha said to the bhikshus, "If there be in a future world any good son or good daughter to hear this Devadatta chapter of the wonderful Law Flower Sutra with pure heart and believing reverence, and is free from doubt, such a one shall not fall into the hells or become a hungry spirit or animal, but shall be born into the presence of the Buddhas of the universe. Wherever he be born, he will always hear the sutra, and if he be born amongst men or gods, he will enjoy marvelous delight. As to the Buddha into whose presence he is born, his birth shall be by emanation from a lotus flower." Thereupon a bodhisattva attendant from a region beneath of the world-honored one, abundant treasures, named wisdom accumulation, said to the Buddha, "Abundant treasures, let us return to our own land." But Shakyamuni Buddha said to wisdom accumulation, "Good son, wait a while. Here is the bodhisattva Manjushri. First meet and discuss with him the wonderful law, and then return to your own land." Thereupon Manjushri, sitting on 1,000-petal lotus flower as large as a carriage wheel, with the bodhisattvas who accompanied him also sitting on jeweled lotus flowers, unaided sprang up from the great ocean, out of the palace of the Sagura Dragon King. Taking up his place in the sky, he advanced to the divine vulture peak, alighted from his lotus flower, went before the Buddha, and reverently made obeisance at the feet of the 2 world-honored ones. When he had expressed his reverence, he went over to wisdom accumulation, and after they had asked after each other's welfare, they withdrew and sat to one side. The bodhisattva wisdom accumulation asked Manjushri, "Virtuous sir, since you went to the dragon palace, how many beings have you converted?" Manjushri answered, "Their numbers are immeasurable. They cannot be calculated nor expressed in words nor fathomed by the mind. Just wait a moment. One must bring the proof." Before he had finished speaking, numberless bodhisattvas sitting on jeweled lotus flowers sprang up from the sea, advanced to the divine vulture peak, and took up their place in the sky. All these bodhisattvas had been converted and saved by Manjushri, had become perfect in bodhisattva deeds, and together discussed and expounded the 6 paramitas. Those in the sky who had formerly been Shravakas told of their former Shravaka deeds, but now they all maintained the spiritual principle of the great vehicle. Then said Manjushri to wisdom accumulation, "Such has been the result of my course of instruction in the ocean." Then the bodhisattva wisdom accumulation extolled him thus in verse, "Most wise, virtuous, brave, and strong one, thou hast converted innumerable beings, as now this great assembly and I have all seen. Expounding the principle of reality and revealing the one vehicle law, extensively hast thou led living beings to attain with speed bodhi." Manjushri replied, "That which I in the midst of the ocean always proclaimed was no other than the wonderful Law Flower Sutra." Wisdom accumulation asked Manjushri, This sutra is very profound and subtle, the pearl of all the sutras, a rare thing in the world. Is there any being who diligently and zealously practicing this sutra can attain speedily Buddhahood? Manjushri replied, there is the daughter of the Dragon King, Sagara, just 8 years old, wise and of keen faculties, well acquainted with the karma arising from the roots of action of all creatures, who has obtained dharani, has been able to receive and keep all the most profound and mystic treasuries revealed by Buddhas, and has deeply entered into meditations and penetrated into all laws. In a moment of time, she resolved on Bodhi and attained non-relapse into mortality. She has unembarrassed powers of argument and a compassionate mind for all the living as if they were her children. Her merits are complete, and the thoughts of her mind and explanations of her mouth are both subtle and great. Kind and compassionate, virtuous and modest, gentle and beautiful, in her disposition she has been able to attain Bodhi. The Bodhisattva Wisdom Accumulation said, I have seen how Shakyamuni Tathagata, during innumerable kalpas, in doing arduous and painful deeds, accumulating merit and heaping up virtue, sought the way of Bodhi ceaselessly and without rest. I have observed that in the 3,000 great thousandfold world there is not even a spot as small as a mustard seed where he has not laid down his body and life as a bodhisattva for the sake of the living. And only after that did he attain Bodhi. It is incredible that this girl, in but a moment, should become perfectly enlightened. Before he had ceased talking, the daughter of the Dragon King suddenly appeared before them, and after making reverent obeisance to the Buddha, withdrew to one side, extolling him in verse. Profound of insight into sin and blessedness, he illuminates the universe. His spiritual body, ethereal and pure, has the 32 perfect signs. With the 80 kinds of excellence is his spiritual body adorned. He to whom gods and men look up, dragons and spirits pay reverence, and all species of living beings do worship and honor. That, having heard the truth, I attained Bodhi, only the Buddha may bear witness. I will reveal the teaching of the great vehicle, which delivers creatures from suffering. Thereupon Shariputra said to the daughter of the dragon, You state that in no length of time you attained the supreme way. This thing is hard to believe. Wherefore? Because the body of a woman is filthy, and not a vessel of the law. How can she attain supreme Bodhi? The Bodhi way is so vast that only after passing through innumerable kalpas, enduring hardship, accumulating good works, and perfectly practicing the perfections can it be accomplished. Moreover, a woman by her body still has 5 hindrances. She cannot become first, king of the Brahma heaven; second, Chakra; third, Amara king; fourth, a holy wheel-rolling king; and fifth, the Buddha. How then could a woman's body so speedily become a Buddha? Now the dragon's daughter possessed a precious pearl worth a 3,000 great thousandfold world, which she held up and presented to the Buddha, and which the Buddha immediately accepted. The dragon's daughter then said to the Bodhisattva Wisdom Accumulation and the honored Shariputra, I have offered my pearl, and the world-honored one has accepted it. Was this action speedy? They answered, Most speedy. The daughter said, By your supernatural powers, behold me become a Buddha even more rapidly than that. At that moment, the entire congregation saw the dragon's daughter suddenly transformed into a male, perfect in bodhisattva deeds, who instantly went to the world spotless in the southern quarter, where she sat on the precious lotus flower, obtaining perfect enlightenment, with the 32 signs and the 80 kinds of excellence, and universally proclaiming the wonderful law to all living creatures in the universe. Then the Saha world of bodhisattvas, Shravakas, the 8 groups of gods and dragons, and human and non-human beings, all from afar beholding the dragon's daughter become a Buddha, and universally preach the law to gods, men, and others. Amongst that congregation, all rejoiced greatly and made reverent salutation from afar. The countless multitude, on hearing her preach the law, were roused to apprehension and attained never sliding back into mortality. The countless multitude also received their prediction of the perfect way. The world spotless made the sixfold movement. 3,000 living beings in the Saha world took up their abode in the stage of never returning to mortality, while 3,000 living beings set their minds on Bodhi and obtained their prediction of attaining it. The Bodhisattva, wisdom accumulation, and Shariputra, and all the congregation silently believed. Chapter 13. Exhortation to hold firm. At that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Medicine King, and the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Great Eloquence, with their retinue of 20,000 Bodhisattvas, all in the presence of the Buddha, made this vow, saying, "Be pleased, world-honored one, to be without anxiety. After the extinction of the Buddha, we will keep, read, recite, and preach the Sutra. In the evil age to come, living beings will decrease in good qualities, while they will increase in utter arrogance and in covetousness of gain and honors, and will develop their evil qualities and be far removed from emancipation. Though it may be difficult to teach and convert them, we, arousing our utmost patience, will read and recite this sutra, keep, preach, and copy it, pay every kind of homage to it, and spare not our body and life." Thereupon the 500 arhats in the assembly, whose future had been predicted, addressed the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, we also vow to publish abroad this sutra in other lands." Again the 8,000 arhats, training and trained, whose future had been predicted, rising up from their seats and folding their hands toward the Buddha, made this vow, saying, "World-honored one, we also will publish abroad the sutra in other lands. Wherefore? Because in this Saha world men abound in wickedness, cherish the utmost arrogance, and are of shallow virtue, defiled with hatreds, crooked with suspicions, and insincere in mind." Then the sister of the Buddha's mother, the Bhikshuni Mahaprajapati, with 6,000 bhikshunis, training and trained, rose up from their seats with one mind, folded their hands, and gazed up to the honored face without removing their eyes for a moment. Then the world-honored one addressed the Gautami, "Why, with sad countenance, do you gaze at the Tathagata? Are you not thinking to say that I have not mentioned your name and predicted for you perfect enlightenment? Gautami, I have already inclusively announced that the future of all Shravakas is predicted. Now you who desire to know your future destiny shall in the world to come become a great teacher of the law and the laws of the 68,000 kotis of Buddhas, and these 6,000 bhikshunis of training and trained will all become teachers of the law. Thus you will gradually become perfect in the Bodhisattva way, and will become a Buddha entitled Loveliness Tathagata, worshipful, all-wise, perfectly enlightened in conduct, well-departed, understander of the world, peerless leader, controller, teacher of gods and men, Buddha, world-honored one, Gautami. This Buddha, loveliness, and the 6,000 Bodhisattvas will in turn be predicted to attain perfect enlightenment." Thereupon the mother of Rahula, the Bhikshuni Yasodhara, reflected thus, "The world-honored one in his predictions has left my name alone unmentioned." Then the Buddha said to Yashodhara, "You, in the laws of the 100,000 myriads of kotis of Buddhas in the world to come, by your doing of bodhisattva deeds, shall become a great teacher of the law, gradually become perfect in the Buddha way, and in the domain good, become a Buddha entitled the perfect myriad-rayed Tathagata, worshipful, all-wise, perfectly enlightened in conduct, well-departed, understander of the world, peerless leader, controller, teacher of gods and men, Buddha, world-honored one. The lifetime of that Buddha will be innumerable asankhya kalpas." Then the Bhikshuni Mahaprajapati and the Bhikshuni Yashodhara, together with all their retinue, all rejoiced greatly, having obtained such unprecedented felicity, and immediately before the Buddha spoke thus in verse, "World-honored leader, comforter of gods and men, we, hearing thy prediction, have perfect peace in our hearts. After uttering this verse, the Bhikshuni spoke to the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, we also are able to publish abroad this sutra in lands in other regions." Thereupon the world-honored one looked upon the 80 myriads of kotis of Nayutas of Bodhisattva Mahasattvas. All these Bodhisattvas were of the stage of Vaivartika, who rolled the never-retreating law wheel and had attained to the Dharanis. Immediately they rose from their seats, went before the Buddha, with one mind folded their hands, and reflected thus: "If the world-honored one commands us to keep and expound this sutra, we will proclaim abroad the law as the Buddha has taught it." Again they reflected thus: "The Buddha now is silent. We are not commanded. What shall we do?" Then these bodhisattvas, respectfully obeying the Buddha's will and themselves desiring to fulfill their original vow, before the Buddha raised a lion's roar and uttered a vow, saying, "World-honored one, after the extinction of the Tathagata, we will compass and travel through the worlds in all directions, in order to lead all the living to copy this sutra, receive and keep, read and recite it, expound in meaning, practice it as their law, and rightly keep it in mind, all by the Buddha's might. Be pleased, world-honored one, though in another quarter, to behold and guard us from afar." Then the bodhisattvas altogether unanimously raised their voices, speaking thus in verse: "Be pleased to be without anxiety. After the Buddha's extinction in the last dreadful evil age, we will proclaim abroad this sutra. Though in their ignorance many will curse and abuse us and beat us with swords and staves, we will endure it all. Bhikshus in that evil age will be heretical, suspicious, warped, claiming to have attained when they have not, and with minds full of arrogance. Others in the Aranya will wear patched garments in seclusion, pretending that they walk the true path and scorning other people. Greedily attached to gain, they will preach the law to laymen and be revered by the world as arhats of the 6 transcendent powers. These men, cherishing evil minds, ever thinking of earthly things, assuming the name of Aranyas, will love to calumniate us, saying such things of us as, 'All these bhikshus from love of gain preach heretical doctrine. They have themselves composed the sutra to delude the people of the world. For the sake of acquiring fame, they will make a specialty of this sutra. Always in the assemblies, in order to ruin us, to kings and ministers, to Brahmins and citizens, and to the other groups of bhikshus, they will slanderously speak evil of us, saying, 'These are men of false views, who proclaim heretical doctrines.' But we, from reverence for the Buddha, will endure all these evils. By these contemptuously addressed as 'all you Buddhas,' even such scorn and arrogance we will patiently endure. In the evil age of the corrupt kalpa, abounding in fear and dread, devils will take possession of them to curse, abuse, and insult us. But we, revering and believing in the Buddha, will wear the armor of perseverance. For the sake of preaching the sutra, we will endure all these hard things. We will not love body and life, but only care for the supreme way. We will, throughout all ages to come, guard what the Buddha bequeaths. World-honored one, thou knowest that in the corrupt age, vicious bhikshus, knowing not the laws so tactfully preached as opportunities served by the Buddha, will abuse and frown upon us. Repeatedly shall we be driven out and exiled afar from the monasteries. Such evils will be our ills for remembering the Buddha's command, but we will endure all these things. Wherever in villages and cities there be those who seek after the law, we will all go there and preach the law bequeathed by the Buddha. We are the world-honored one's apostles, and amidst a multitude having nothing to fear, will rightly preach the law. Be pleased, O Buddha, to abide in peace. In the presence of the world-honored one, and the Buddhas come from all directions, we thus make our vow, and the Buddha knows our hearts. Chapter 14. A Happy Life. At that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Manjushri, the Law King's son, spoke to the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, rare indeed are such bodhisattvas as these, Reverently, according with the Buddha, they have made great vows that in the evil age to come they will protect, keep, read, recite, and preach this Law-Flower Sutra. World-honored one, how are these Bodhisattva Mahasattvas to be able to preach this sutra in the evil age to come? The Buddha addressed Manjushri, if any Bodhisattva Mahasattva desires to preach this sutra in the evil age to come, he should be steadfast in the four methods. First, steadfast in the Bodhisattva's spheres of action and intimacy, so that he may be able to preach the sutra to living beings. Manjushri, why is it called a Bodhisattva Mahasattva's sphere of action? If a Bodhisattva Mahasattva abides in a state of patience, is gentle and agreeable, is neither hasty nor overbearing, and his mind is imperturbed. If, moreover, he has no laws by which to act, but sees all things in their reality, nor proceeds along the undivided way, this is termed a Bodhisattva Mahasattva's sphere of action. Why is the other termed a Bodhisattva Mahasattva's sphere of intimacy? A Bodhisattva Mahasattva is not intimate with kings, princes, ministers, and rulers, nor intimate with heretics, the brahmacharans, nirgrantas, and so on, nor with composers of worldly and outside literature or poetry, nor with lokayatas and anti-lokayatas, nor does he resort to brutal sports, boxing and wrestling, nor to the various juggling performances of nartakas and others, nor does he consort with chandalas, keepers of pigs, sheep, fowl, and dogs, hunters, fishermen, and those engaged in these evil pursuits. Whenever such people as these sometimes come to him, he preaches the law to them, expecting nothing in return. Further, he does not consort with bhikshus, bhikshunis, and male and female lay devotees who seek after shravakashep, nor does he address them. Neither in a room, nor in a place, the place of a promenade, nor in the hall does he dwell or stay with them. If at times they come to him, he takes the opportunity of preaching the law, expecting nothing in return. Manjushri. Again, a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should not preach the law to women, displaying an appearance capable of arousing passionate thoughts, nor have pleasure in seeing them. If he enters the homes of others, he does not converse with any girl, virgin, widow, and so forth, nor again does he become on friendly terms with any hermaphrodite, nor does he not enter the homes of others alone. If for some reason he must enter there alone, then with single mind he thinks of the Buddha. If he preaches the law to women, he does not display his teeth in smiles, nor let his breast be seen. Nor even for the sake of the law does he ever become intimate, how much less for other reasons. He takes no pleasure in keeping young pupils, shramaneras, and children, nor has he pleasure in being with them as teacher, but ever preferring meditation and seclusion, he cultivates and controls his mind. Manjushri, this is termed the first grade or sphere of intimacy of a bodhisattva. Further, a bodhisattva mahasattva contemplates all existences as void, appearances as they really are, neither upside down, nor moving, nor receding, nor turning, just like space, of the nature of nothingness, cut off from the course of all words and expressions, unborn, not coming forth, not arising, nameless, formless, really without existence, unimpeded, infinite, boundless, unrestrained, only existing by causation, and produced through perversion of thought. Therefore I say constantly to delight in the contemplation of things or laws, such as these is termed a Bodhisattva Mahasattva's second sphere of intimacy. Thereupon the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim his teaching over again, spoke thus in verse. If there be any bodhisattva who, in the future evil age, with fearless mind, desires to preach this sutra, he must occupy his proper sphere of action and his proper sphere of intimacy, constantly avoiding kings and princes, ministers and rulers, brutal and dangerous performers, chandalas, heretics, brahmacharans, nor does he consort with men of arrogance who are fond of studying the Tripitaka of Hinayana, with commandment-breaking bhikshus, arhats only in name, or with bhikshunis fond of jocularity, or with female disciples who, through sensuousness, seek present nirvana. He consorts with none of them. But if such people as these, in goodness of mind, come to the Bodhisattva to hear the Buddha way, then the Bodhisattva, with fearless mind, cherishing no expectation, should preach the law to them. Widows and virgins and all sorts of eunuchs he never approaches for close friendship, nor does he consort with butchers and meat mincers, hunters and fishermen, who slaughter for gain. Those who vend meat for a living and procurators, with such people as these he should not consort. With brutal wrestlings, amusements, and plays, whores and so forth, he should have no intimacy whatever. He should not, alone in a screened-off place, preach the law to a woman. If he has to preach the law to her, he will avoid jocularity. When he enters the hamlet in quest of food, let him take along another bhikshu. If there be no other bhikshu, let him with single mind think of the Buddha. These, then, are what are called the spheres of action and of intimacy. Maintaining these two spheres, he can teach with peace and joy. And again, if he does not observe laws, higher, middle, or lower, active or passive, laws real or unreal, also if he does not discriminate, this is a man or this is a woman, if he discovers no laws, nor recognizes nor sees them, then this is called a bodhisattva's sphere of action. All laws or things are void and non-existent, without permanence, neither beginning nor ending. This is named the sphere to which wise men resort. The perverse discriminate all laws as either existing or non-existing, real or unreal, produced or unproduced. Let the Bodhisattva abide in seclusion, cultivate and control his mind, and be firmly fixed and immovable as Mount Sumeru, contemplating all laws as though they were not, as if they were space, without solidity, neither produced nor coming forth, motionless and unreceding, ever remaining a unity. This is named the proper sphere of intimacy. If any bhikshu, after my extinction, enters this sphere of action and sphere of intimacy, when he preaches this sutra, he will have no timidity or weakness. When the bodhisattva at times enters a quiet room and in perfect meditation contemplates things in their true meaning, and rising up from his meditation to kings of nations, princes, ministers, and people, Brahmins and others, reveals, expounds, and preaches this sutra, his mind will be at ease and free from timidity and weakness. Manjushri, this is called a bodhisattva's steadfastness in the first method. He is then able in future generations to preach the Law Flower Sutra. Again, Manjushri, after the extinction of the Tathagata in the period of the decline of the law, he who desires to preach this sutra should abide in pleasant ministry of speech. Wherever he orally proclaims or reads the sutra, he takes no pleasure in telling of the errors of others of the sutras, neither does he despise other preachers, nor speaks of the good and evil, the merits and demerits of other people, nor singles out Shravakas by name and publishes their errors and sins, nor by name praises their excellences, nor does he beget an invidious mind. By keeping well such a cheerful heart as this, those who hear will offer no opposition to him. To those who ask difficult questions, he does not answer with the law of the small vehicle, but only with the great vehicle, and explains it to them that they may obtain perfect knowledge. Thereupon the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim this teaching over again, spoke thus in verse. The Bodhisattva ever delights and is at ease in preaching the law. In a clean and pure spot, setting up his pulpit, he anoints himself with oil, having bathed away uncleanliness, puts on a new clean robe, all clean within and without. Calmly seated on the law throne, he teaches as he is questioned. If there be any bhikshus and bhikshunis, male lay disciples and female lay disciples, kings and princes, their retainers and people, he preaches the mystic principle to them with a gentle countenance. If there be any difficult question, he answers according to its meaning. By reasonings and parables he expounds and discriminates it. By this tactful method he stirs them all to earnestness, to steady advance and to entry on the Buddha way. He rids himself of a lazy mind and slackness of thought. He is free from all worries, and with kindly heart proclaims day and night he ever propounds the teaching of the Supreme Way. By various reasonings and innumerable parables, revealing it to the living, and causing them all to rejoice, garments and provision for sleep, drink, food, and medicines. For all these things he has no anticipation. Only with single mind he thinks of the cause of his preaching the law, resolved in accomplishing the Buddha way, and causing all others likewise so to do. This then is his great profit and joy and service. After my extinction, if there be any bhikshu who is able to proclaim this wonderful Lawflower Sutra, his mind will be free from envy, from distresses and obstacles, and from grief and sorrow, as well as from the abuse of men. Further, he will be free from fear, from laying on of swords and staves, nor will he be driven away, because he is steadfast in forbearance. The wise man, in such ways as these, rightly cultivates his mind, being able to dwell at ease. As I have said above, the merit of that man, though thousands of myriads of kotis of kalpas were reckoned in illustration, is incapable of full expression. Again, Manjushri, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, who, in the corrupt ages to come, when the law is about to perish, receives and keeps, reads and recites the sutra, does not cherish an envious and deceitful mind, nor does he slight and abuse other learners of the Buddha way and seek out their excesses and shortcomings. If there be bhikshus, bhikshunis, male and female lay disciples who seek after Shavakaship, or seek after Pratyeka Buddhahood, or seek after the Bodhisattva way, he does not distress them, causing them doubts and regrets, saying to them, "You are far removed from the way and will never be able to attain to perfect knowledge." Wherefore? Because you are unstable people and remiss in the way. Moreover, he should not indulge in discussions about the laws or engage in disputations. But in regard to all the living, he should think of them with great compassion. In regard to the Tathagatas, he should think of them as benevolent fathers. In regard to the Bodhisattvas, he should think of them as his great teachers. In regard to the universal great Bodhisattvas, he should ever from his deepest heart revere and worship them. In regard to all living beings, he should preach the law equally, so as to accord with the law, neither more nor less. Even for those who deeply love the law, he will not preach more than it. Manjushri, when this Bodhisattva Mahasattva in the last age, when the law is about to perish, has accomplished this third pleasant ministry of thought and preaches the sutra, nothing will be able to disturb him. He will find good fellow students who will read and recite the sutra with him. He will also find a great multitude come and hear him, who, after hearing, are able to observe it, after observing, are able to recite it, after reciting, are able to preach it, after preaching, are able to copy or cause others to copy it, and who will pay homage to the sutra, revering, honoring, and extolling it. Then the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim this teaching over again, spoke thus in a verse. If one would preach this sutra, let him renounce an envious, angry, proud, deceitful, or false mind, and ever do upright deeds. He should disparage none, and never for diversion discuss the laws, nor cause others doubt or regret, saying, "You will never become Buddhas." This Buddha's son, in preaching the law, will ever be gentle, patient, and compassionate to all, with never a thought of slackness. To the great bodhisattvas everywhere, who walk the way in pity for all, he should beget a reverent mind, thinking, "These are my great teachers." To all world-honored Buddhas he should feel as to peerless fathers, and suppressing his haughty spirit, should preach the law without hindrance. Such is the third method. Let the wise man guard it. Such a single-hearted pleasant ministry will be revered by countless hosts. Again, Manjushri, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva in the last ages to come, when the law is about to perish, who keeps this law flower sutra, should beget a spirit of great charity to laymen and monks, and beget a spirit of great compassion for those not yet bodhisattvas. And he should reflect thus: such people as these have suffered great loss. The law preached as opportunity served by the tactful method of the Tathagata, they have neither heard nor known nor apprehended nor inquired for nor believed in nor understood. Though those people have not inquired for nor believed in nor understood this sutra, when I have attained perfect enlightenment, wherever I am, by my transcendental powers and powers of wisdom, I will lead them to abide in this law. Manjushri, this Bodhisattva Mahasattva, who, after the extinction of the Tathagata, has accomplished this fourth method, when he preaches this law, will be free from errors. He will ever be worshipped, revered, honored, and extolled by bhikshus, bhikshunis, male and female lay devotees, by kings and princes, by their ministers and people, by Brahmins and citizens, and by others. All the gods in the sky also, in order to hear the law, will always follow and attend on him. If he be in a village or city or secluded forest, and someone comes desiring to put difficult questions to him, the gods day and night, for the sake of the law, will constantly guard and protect him, so that he shall be able to cause all his hearers to rejoice. Wherefore? Because this sutra is that which all past, future, and present Buddhas watch over by their divine powers. Manjushri, in countless countries, even the name of this Law Flower Sutra cannot be heard. How much less can it be seen, received, and kept, read, and recited? Manjushri, it is like a powerful, holy, wheel-rolling king who desires by force to conquer other domains. When minor kings do not obey his command, the wheel-rolling king calls up his various armies and goes to punish them. The king, seeing his soldiers who distinguish themselves in the war, is greatly pleased, and according to their merit bestows rewards, either giving fields, houses, villages, or cities, or giving garments or personal ornaments, or giving all kinds of treasures, gold, silver, lapis lazuli, moonstones, agates, coral, amber, elephants, horses, carriages, litters, male and female slaves, and people. Only the crown jewel on his head he gives to none. Wherefore? Because only on the head of a king may this sole jewel be worn, and if he gave it, all the king's retinue would be astounded. Manjushri, the Tathagata is also like this. By his powers of meditation and wisdom, he has taken possession of the domain of the law and rules as king over the triple world. But the Mara kings are unwilling to submit. The Tathagata's wise and holy generals fight with them. With those who distinguish themselves, he too is pleased, and in the midst of his four hosts preaches the sutras to them, causing them to rejoice, and bestows on them the meditations, the emancipations, the faultless roots and powers, and all the wealth of the law. In addition, he gives them the city of nirvana, saying that they have attained extinction, and attracts their minds so that they all rejoice. Yet he does not preach to them this Law Flower Sutra. Manjushri, just as the wheel-rolling king, seeing his soldiers who distinguish themselves, is so extremely pleased that now at last he gives them the incredible jewel so long worn on his head, which may not wantonly be given to anyone, so also is it with the Tathagata. As the great law king of the triple world, teaching and converting all the living by the law, when he sees his wise and holy army fighting with the Mara of the five mental processes, the Mara of earthly cares, and the Mara of death, and doing so with great exploits and merits, exterminating the three poisons, escaping from the triple world, and breaking through the nets of the Maras, then the Tathagata also is greatly pleased, and now at last preaches this Law Flower Sutra, which has never before been preached, and which is able to cause all the living to reach perfect knowledge, though all the world greatly resents and has difficulty in believing it. Manjushri, This Law-Flower Sutra is the foremost teaching of the Tathagatas and the most profound of all discourses. I give it to you at last of all, just as that powerful king at last gives the brilliant jewel he has guarded for long. Manjushri, this Law-Flower Sutra is the mysterious treasury of the Buddha Tathagatas, which is supreme above all sutras. For long has it been guarded and not prematurely declared. Today, for the first time, I proclaim it to you all. At that time, the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim this teaching over again, spoke thus in verse, "Ever acting patiently, pitying all beings, such a one can proclaim the sutra the Buddha extols. In the last ages to come, they who keep the sutra, whether laymen or monks or not yet bodhisattvas, must have hearts of compassion. For those who do not hear nor believe the sutra suffer great loss. I, attaining the Buddha way, by tactful methods preach the sutra to them, that they may abide in it. It is like a powerful wheel-rolling king, who to his war-distinguished soldiers presents many rewards, elephants, horses, carriages, litters, personal ornaments, as well as fields and houses, villages and cities, or bestows garments, various kinds of jewels, slaves, and wealth, bestowing all with joy. But only for one heroic and of rare exploits does the king take from his head the crown jewel to give him. Thus is it also with the Tathagata. He is the king of the law, possessed of great powers of patience and the treasury of wisdom. He, with great benevolence, transforms the world with his law. Seeing all human beings suffering from pains and distresses, seeking for deliverance, fighting against the Maras, he to all these living beings has preached various laws, and in great tactfulness has preached these numerous sutras. Finally, knowing the creatures have attained their developed powers, at last he to them preaches this law-flower, as the king took from his head the jewel and gave it. This sutra is preeminent among all the sutras. I have always guarded and not prematurely revealed it. Now indeed is the time to preach it to you all. After my extinction, whoever seeks the Buddha way and desires imperturbably to proclaim the sutra should relate himself to the 4 rules, such as these. He who reads the sutra will be ever free from worry and free from pain and disease. His countenance will be fresh and white. He will not be born poor, humble, or ugly. All creatures will delight to see him as a longed-for saint. Heavenly cherubim will be his servants. Swords and staves will not be laid on him. Poison cannot harm him. If anyone curses him, that man's mouth will be closed. Fearlessly he will roam like a lion king. The radiance of his wisdom will shine like the sun. If he should dream, he will see only the wonderful, seeing the Tathagatas seated on lion thrones, preaching the law to hosts of surrounding bhikshus, seeing also dragon spirits, asuras, and others, in number as the sands of the Ganges, who worship him with folded hands, and he sees himself preaching the law to them. He will also see the Buddhas with the sign of the golden body, emitting boundless light, illuminating all beings, and with Brahma voice expounding the laws. While the Buddha to the 4 groups is preaching the supreme law, he will find himself in the midst, extolling the Buddha with folded hands. He will hear the law with joy, pay homage to him, attain the dharanis, and prove the truth of never retreating. The Buddha, knowing his mind has entered deep into the Buddha way, will then predict that he will accomplish supreme, perfect enlightenment, saying, "You, my good son, shall in the age to come obtain infinite wisdom, the great way of the Buddha, a domain splendidly pure, of extent incomparable, and with its 4 hosts with folded hands hearing the law. He will also find himself in mountain groves, exercising himself in the good law, proving reality and deep in meditation, seeing the universal Buddhas. Golden-colored are those Buddhas, adorned with 100 blessed signs. He who hears and preaches to others ever has good dreams like these. Again he will dream he is a king who forsakes his palace and kinsfolk and exquisite pleasures of the senses to go to the wisdom throne. At the foot of a Bodhi tree, he sits on the lion throne. After seeking the way for 7 days, he attains the wisdom of Buddhas. Having attained the supreme way, he arises, and rolling the law wheel to the 4 hosts, preaches the law for thousands of myriads of kotis of kalpas. After preaching the faultless, wonderful law and saving innumerable creatures, he shall then enter nirvana, as a lamp is extinct when its smoke ends. If anyone in the evil ages to come preaches this preeminent law, he will obtain the great blessing of such rewards as the above. Chapter 15. Springing up out of the earth. At that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas who had come from other lands, numerous as the sands of 8 Ganges, arose in the great assembly, and with folded hands saluted and spoke to the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, if the Buddha will allow us after his extinction diligently and zealously to protect and keep, read and recite, copy and worship the Sutra in this Saha world, we should preach it abroad in this land." Thereupon the Buddha addressed all the host of those Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, "Enough, my good sons, there is no need for you to protect and keep this sutra. Wherefore? Because in my Saha world there are in fact Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, numerous as the sands of 60,000 Ganges. Each one of these Bodhisattvas has a retinue, numerous as the sands of 60,000 Ganges. These persons are able, after my extinction, to protect and keep, read and recite, and preach abroad this sutra." When the Buddha had thus spoken, all the earth of the 3,000 great thousandfold land of the Saha world trembled and quaked, and from its midst there issued together innumerable 1,000 myriad kotis of Bodhisattva Mahasattvas. All these Bodhisattvas, with their golden-hued bodies, 32 signs and boundless radiance, had all before been dwelling in infinite space below the Saha world. All these Bodhisattvas, hearing the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha preaching, sprang forth from below. Each one of these Bodhisattvas was the commander of a great host, leading a retinue as the sands of 60,000 Ganges. Moreover, others led retinues numerous as the sands of 50,000, 40,000, 30,000, 20,000, 10,000 Ganges. Moreover, down to the sands of 1 Ganges, the sands of half a Ganges, a quarter of it, down to the fraction of 1,000 myriad kotis of Nayutas. Moreover, 1,000 myriad kotis of Nayutas of followers. Moreover, myriads of kotis of followers. Moreover, 1,000 myriad, 100 myriad, or even a myriad. Moreover, 1,000, 100, or even 10. Moreover, those who lead 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 disciples. Moreover, one who is alone, happy in the practice of isolation. Such bodhisattvas as these are immeasurable, illimitable, beyond the powers of comprehension by calculation or comparison. When these bodhisattvas had emerged from the earth, each went up to the wonderful stupa of the precious 7 in the sky, where were the Tathagata abundant treasures and Shakyamuni Buddha. On their arrival they made obeisance, with faces to the ground, to both the world-honored ones, and going to the Buddhas seated on the lion thrones under the jewel trees, they also saluted them, 3 times making procession round them on their right, with folded hands revering them and extolling them with all kinds of bodhisattva hymns. Then they stood to one side with delight, gazing upon both the world-honored ones. From the time that these Bodhisattva Mahasattvas first issued from the earth and extolled the Buddhas with all kinds of Bodhisattva hymns, in the interval there had passed 50 minor kalpas. During all this time Shakyamuni Buddha sat in silence, and silent also were the 4 groups, but the 50 kalpas, through the divine power of the Buddha, seemed to the great multitude as half a day. At that time the 4 groups, also by the divine power of the Buddha, saw the Bodhisattvas who everywhere filled the space of innumerable 100,000 myriad kotis of domains. Among the host of those Bodhisattvas there were the 4 leading teachers. The first was named Eminent Conduct, the second named Boundless Conduct, the third named Pure Conduct, and the fourth named Steadfast Conduct. These 4 bodhisattvas are of their hosts the chief heads and leaders. In front of their great hosts, each of them with folded hands looked toward Shakyamuni Buddha and inquired of him, saying, "World-honored one, hast thou few ailments and few troubles, and art thou at ease? Are those whom thou must save readily receiving thy teaching? Do they cause the world-honored one not to become weary?" Thereupon the 4 great bodhisattvas spoke thus in verse, "In the world-honored one at ease, with few ailments and few troubles? In instructing all the living beings, is he free from weariness? And are all the living readily accepting his teaching? Do they cause the world-honored one not to get tired?" Then the world-honored one in the great assembly of the bodhisattvas spoke thus, so it is, my good sons. The Tathagata is at ease, with few ailments and few troubles. These beings are easy to transform, and I am free from weariness. Wherefore? Because all these beings for generations have constantly received my instruction and worshipped and honored the former Buddhas, cultivating roots of goodness. All these beings, from first seeing me and hearing my preaching, received it in faith and entered the Tathagata wisdom, except those who had previously practiced and learned the small vehicle. But even such people as these I have now caused to hear the Sutra and entered the Buddha wisdom. Thereupon these great bodhisattvas spoke thus in verse, Good, great hero, world-honored one, all these living creatures are easily transformed by thee, are able to inquire into the profound wisdom of Buddhas, and hearing to believe and discern, we congratulate thee. Then the world-honored one extolled these supreme chiefs, the great bodhisattvas, saying, Good, my good sons, you may rightly be minded to congratulate the Tathagata. Then Maitreya Bodhisattva and the host of other bodhisattvas, numerous as the sands of 8,000 Ganges, all reflected thus, From of old we have never seen nor heard of such a host of great bodhisattva mahasattvas issuing from the earth, standing in the presence of the world-honored ones, with folded hands worshipping and inquiring of the Tathagata. Then Maitreya Bodhisattva Mahasattva, being aware of the thoughts in the minds of all the bodhisattvas, numerous as the sands of 8,000 Ganges, and desiring also to resolve his own doubt, folded his hands toward the Buddha and asked him thus in verse, These innumerable thousand myriad kotis, this great host of bodhisattvas, are such as we have never seen before. Be pleased to explain, honored of men, from what places they have come, for what reason they have assembled, huge of body, of transcendent power, of wisdom inconceivable, firm of will and memory, with great powers of long suffering, whom all the living rejoice to see. Whence have they come? Each of these bodhisattvas leads on a retinue whose numbers are beyond compute, like the sands of the Ganges. There are also the great bodhisattvas, leading followers numerous as 60,000 Ganges sands. Such mighty hosts with one mind seek the Buddha way. These great leaders in number, as 60,000 Ganges sands, all come and worship the Buddha and guard and keep the Sutra. Some, still more numerous, lead followers numerous as 50,000 Ganges sands, as 40,000 or 30,000, as 20,000, down to 10,000, as 1,000 or 100 and so forth, down to the sands of one Ganges, as half, 1/3, 1/4, as one part of the myriad kotis of a Ganges sands. Those who lead 1,000 myriad nayutas, or a myriad kotis of disciples, or even half koti of disciples, these leaders are still more numerous than the above. The leaders of 1,000,000 or 10,000, 1,000 or 100 or 50 or 10 or 3, 2 or 1, single ones with no following, who enjoy solitariness, have all come together to the Buddha in numbers even greater than the leaders above. Okay, at that point we will stop for this evening. The next reading of the Lotus Sutra, I believe, is the 15th. Yes, the 15th, which is tomorrow night. We'll read for 1 hour tomorrow night. I will conclude with the dedication of merit, whereby we dedicate the merit of this practice to all beings, and then open the floor to discussion in local chat. So just give me 1 moment to find the dedication of merit, which I should memorize by now, but I haven't. Whatever understanding, whatever positive force has come from this, may it go deeper and deeper and act as a cause to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all.